Maria Sanchez and Alex Turner were the best of friends. They lived in a small coastal town called Seabreeze, where everyone knew everyone. Life in Seabreeze was peaceful but often uneventful, and the two teenagers were always looking for something exciting to do. One warm summer afternoon, Maria was helping her grandmother clean out the attic. It was a dusty, cluttered space filled with old furniture, boxes of forgotten belongings, and the faint scent of lavender. Maria's grandmother, Mrs. Sanchez, had lived in the house for over 50 years, and the attic hadn't been touched in decades. As Maria moved aside a stack of old books, something caught her eye, a rolled-up piece of parchment hidden in a small wooden chest. "Grandma, what's this?" Maria asked, pulling the parchment out. Mrs. Sanchez turned and looked at the parchment, her eyes widening slightly. "Oh my, I haven't seen that in years," she said, her voice filled with a mix of nostalgia and surprise. "That's an old map, Maria. It belonged to your grandfather." Maria carefully unrolled the parchment and laid it on a nearby table. The map was old, the edges frayed and the ink faded in places, but it was still legible. Maria's eyes scanned the map, and she immediately recognized the coastline of Seabreeze. But something was different. There was an island marked just off the coast, an island she had never seen before. "Grandma, what's this island?" Maria asked, pointing to the spot on the map. Mrs. Sanchez peered at the map, adjusting her glasses. "That's Whispering Island," she said softly. "Your grandfather used to talk about it, but I always thought it was just a story." "Whispering Island?" Maria repeated, intrigued. "Why is it called that?" "They say you can hear whispers on the wind when you get close to it," Mrs. Sanchez explained. "But no one has seen the island in years. Some people think it doesn't exist." Maria's curiosity was piqued. "I want to find it," she said, excitement bubbling in her chest. "Do you think it's real?" Mrs. Sanchez smiled fondly at her granddaughter. "Well, Maria, some things you have to see to believe. But be careful. If you really want to find Whispering Island, don't go alone." Maria nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. As soon as she finished helping her grandmother, she rushed to Alex's house, eager to share her discovery. Alex was sitting on the porch, reading a comic book, when Maria came running up the path. His sandy blonde hair fell into his eyes as he looked up from the pages, noticing the excitement on Maria's face. "Alex, you won't believe what I found," Maria exclaimed, waving the map in the air. "What is it?" Alex asked, setting his comic book aside. "A map," Maria said breathlessly. "An old map that shows an island off the coast, a place called Whispering Island. It's not on any modern maps, but I think we should find it." Alex's eyes widened with interest. "An island? And it's not on any maps? That sounds awesome!" Maria unrolled the map, and the two friends studied it together. The island was located a few miles off the coast, not far from the town. They knew the waters well, having grown up near the sea, and they often went out on Alex's small boat for fishing or exploring. "We can use my boat," Alex suggested. "It's small, but it'll get us there." Maria grinned. "Let's do it. We'll pack some supplies and head out tomorrow morning." The next day, the sun rose bright and early, and so did Maria and Alex. They packed a small bag with snacks, water, a flashlight, and a compass, and set off for the harbor where Alex's boat was docked. The boat, named the Sea Sprite, was a sturdy little vessel that had been in Alex's family for years. It wasn't fancy, but it was reliable. As they untied the boat and pushed off from the dock, Maria held the map in her hands, her heart pounding with excitement. The air was fresh, the sky clear, and the sea calm. A perfect day for an adventure. They sailed out of the harbor and headed toward the open sea, following the directions on the map. As they approached the area where the island was supposed to be, Maria and Alex began to feel a strange sense of anticipation. The water around them was calm, almost eerily so, and there was a slight chill in the air despite the warm sun. "I don't see anything yet," Alex said, squinting at the horizon. "Me neither," Maria replied, her eyes scanning the water. "But the map says it's here." They sailed on for a few more minutes, when suddenly a faint sound reached their ears. A soft, distant whisper carried on the wind. "Did you hear that?" Maria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex nodded, his eyes wide. "Yeah, I did. It's coming from that direction." He pointed toward a thick bank of fog that had appeared out of nowhere. The whispers grew louder as they steered the boat toward the fog, and Maria felt a shiver run down her spine. It was as if the island itself was calling to them. They sailed into the fog, the world around them fading into a gray haze. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, but still too soft to make out any words. Maria clutched the map tightly, her heart racing. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the fog lifted, revealing an island ahead. It was small, covered in dense vegetation, with rocky cliffs rising from the sea. The island was exactly where the map said it would be, but it looked wild and untouched, as if no one had set foot on it in centuries. "There it is," Alex said in awe. "Whispering Island." Maria nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Let's go ashore." Maria and Alex anchored the Sea Sprite in a small cove and rowed a dinghy to shore. The island was eerily quiet, except for the constant whispering that seemed to come from all directions. The sand beneath their feet was soft and white, and the air was thick with the scent of salt and wildflowers. They pulled the dinghy up onto the beach and looked around. The island was dense with vegetation, tall trees with thick, twisting roots, and bushes that rustled in the breeze. The whispers seemed to grow louder as they ventured inland, following a narrow path through the undergrowth. "This place is amazing," Maria said, pushing aside a branch. "It feels like we're the first people to ever come here." "Yeah," Alex agreed. "But those whispers are kind of creepy. Where do you think they're coming from?" "I don't know," Maria replied, "but I think we're about to find out." As they walked deeper into the island, they came across a clearing where the trees thinned out, revealing the crumbling remains of an ancient stone structure. The ruins were overgrown with vines, and the stones were worn and weathered by time, but it was clear that this had once been a significant place. The whispers seemed to be coming from the ruins, swirling around them like a soft, ghostly wind. Maria and Alex exchanged a nervous glance. "This must be what's left of the people who lived here," Maria said, stepping closer to the ruins. "Maybe the whispers are their voices, trying to tell us something." "Or maybe it's just the wind," Alex suggested, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. They carefully made their way through the ruins, stepping over fallen stones and brushing aside vines. The structure appeared to have once been a temple or a gathering place, with high walls and an open courtyard in the center. Strange symbols were etched into the stone, worn and faded, but still visible. As they explored the ruins, the whispers grew louder and more insistent. They seemed to be guiding Maria and Alex, leading them towards something hidden deep within the ancient structure. Finally, they reached a large stone door set into the side of a cliff. The door was covered in the same strange symbols they had seen earlier, and it was slightly ajar, as if waiting for someone to open it. "Should we go inside?" Alex asked, his voice tinged with both excitement and fear. Maria hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Yes, we've come this far. We have to see what's in there." They pushed the door open, and it creaked loudly, revealing a dark tunnel that led deep into the heart of the island. The air inside was cool and damp, and the whispers echoed off the walls, growing louder and more urgent. Maria switched on her flashlight, and they carefully made their way down the tunnel, The walls were lined with more symbols, and the floor sloped downward, leading them deeper into the earth. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, winding and twisting through the rock. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground chamber. The ceiling was high and arched, and the walls were lined with strange, glowing crystals that bathed the room in a soft blue light. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal, and on the pedestal rested a small, intricately carved box. The whispers were now almost deafening, swirling around the chamber like a living thing. Maria and Alex approached the pedestal, their hearts pounding with anticipation. "This must be what the whispers were leading us to," Maria said, reaching out to touch the box. "Be careful," Alex warned. "We don't know what's inside." But Maria was too curious to stop. She carefully lifted the lid of the box, revealing a small, shimmering object inside. It was a crystal about the size of an apple, and it glowed with a soft, pulsing light. The crystal seemed to hum with energy, and as Maria held it in her hands, she felt a strange sensation wash over her, as if the crystal was speaking to her mind. "This is incredible," Maria whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's like the crystal is alive." "What is it?" Alex asked, staring at the glowing object. "I don't know," Maria replied, "but I think it's connected to the island. Maybe it's the source of the whispers." Suddenly, the whispers changed. They grew louder, more intense, and Maria and Alex could finally make out the words. They weren't just random sounds, they were voices, speaking in a language neither of them understood. "We need to get out of here," Alex said, his voice trembling. "This place is too weird. We should take the crystal and leave." But as soon as he said those words, the whispers grew angry, swirling around them like a storm. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and the crystals in the walls pulsed with a blinding light. "Wait!" Maria shouted. "I think the island is trying to tell us something. We can't just take the crystal, we need to understand what it does first." But it was too late. The chamber shook violently, and the ceiling began to crack. Rocks tumbled down around them, and the whispers turned into a deafening roar. Maria and Alex looked at each other in panic, realizing they had triggered something powerful, something they couldn't control. "We have to go!" Maria yelled, grabbing Alex's arm. They turned and ran back the way they had come, the tunnel collapsing behind them. The light from the crystals flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Maria held tightly to the crystal, its soft glow guiding them through the chaos. They stumbled out of the tunnel just as the stone door slammed shut behind them, sealing the chamber and the secrets of the island inside. Maria and Alex collapsed on the ground outside the ruins, gasping for breath. The island was silent once more, the whispers gone, as if they had never existed. The only sound was the gentle rustling of the trees and the distant crash of waves on the shore. "That was close," Alex said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I thought we were goners." Maria nodded, still clutching the crystal in her hands. It felt warm to the touch, pulsing with a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. "What do you think this thing is?" she asked, holding it up to the light. "I don't know," Alex admitted. "But whatever it is, it's powerful, maybe too powerful." They sat in silence for a moment, trying to process everything that had happened. The island, the ruins, the whispers. It all felt like a dream, something out of a storybook. But the crystal in Maria's hands was real, and they could both feel the energy radiating from it. "We can't just leave it here," Maria said finally. "We have to take it back to Seabreeze and figure out what to do with it." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Alex asked. "What if it's dangerous?" Maria hesitated. She could feel the power of the crystal, and she knew Alex was right. It could be dangerous, but she also felt a sense of responsibility, as if the island had entrusted the crystal to them for a reason. "We'll be careful," Maria said. "But we can't just leave it here. Maybe there's someone in town who knows what it is, someone who can help us understand it." Alex sighed but nodded. "Okay, but let's get out of here before anything else happens." They made their way back to the beach, where the sea sprite was still anchored in the cove. The island seemed peaceful now, the whispers gone, and the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the water. As they sailed back to Seabreeze, Maria couldn't stop thinking about the crystal. What was it? Where had it come from? And why had the island's inhabitants hidden it so carefully? She had so many questions, but no answers. They reached the harbor just as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon. The town was quiet, the streets empty, and the lights of the houses flickered warmly in the growing darkness. "We should go to the library," Maria suggested, as they tied up the boat. "Maybe we can find something in the old records, something about the island or the crystal." "Good idea," Alex agreed. "But we should keep this quiet. We don't want anyone else finding out about it until we know more." Maria nodded, and they set off for the library, the crystal safely tucked away in Maria's backpack. The library was one of the oldest buildings in Seabreeze, a grand stone structure with tall windows and heavy wooden doors. It was also one of Maria's favorite places in town, a place where she could lose herself in the stories of the past. They entered the library, the cool air a welcome relief after the day's adventures. The librarian, Mrs. Thompson, looked up from her desk and smiled at them. "Maria, Alex, what brings you here so late?" she asked kindly. "We're looking for some old records," Maria explained. "Something about a place called Whispering Island." Mrs. Thompson raised an eyebrow. "Whispering Island? That's an old legend around these parts. I didn't think anyone was still interested in it." "We found a map," Maria said, choosing her words carefully. "And we want to learn more about the island. Do you have anything that might help?" Mrs. Thompson thought for a moment. "There might be something in the archives," she said. "It's not much, but you're welcome to take a look." She led them to the back of the library, where a narrow staircase led down to the basement. The archives were a dimly lit room filled with rows of old books, newspapers, and dusty files. Mrs. Thompson left them to their search, and Maria and Alex began to sift through the records, hoping to find something, anything, about the island. After what felt like hours of searching, Maria finally found a small, weathered book with a faded title, The Legends of Seabreeze. She carefully opened the book, and her eyes widened as she read the first chapter. "It's here," she whispered to Alex. "There's a whole chapter about Whispering Island." The chapter was short, but it was filled with information about the island. According to the legend, Whispering Island had once been home to an ancient civilization, a people who had mastered the power of nature and used it to protect their home. The island was said to be a place of great magic, where the very elements of the earth could be controlled. But the people of the island had grown too powerful, and their magic had become dangerous. Fearing that their power would destroy them, the island's leaders decided to hide their greatest weapon, a crystal that could control the weather. They sealed it away in a hidden chamber deep within the island, and over time, the island itself became hidden from the world, shrouded in fog and forgotten by all but a few. "The crystal," Maria said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This must be it, the one the legend talks about." Alex stared at the book, then at the crystal in Maria's hands. "So it can control the weather?" he asked. "That's incredible." "It's more than incredible," Maria said. "It's dangerous. If this crystal is as powerful as the legend says, it could change everything." They both sat in silence, the weight of their discovery settling over them. The crystal wasn't just a magical artifact. It was a powerful tool, one that could be used for good or evil. And now it was in their hands. "We have to be careful with this," Maria said finally. "We can't let anyone else find out about it, not until we know what to do with it." "But what should we do with it?" Alex asked. "Should we hide it again? Take it back to the island?" Maria thought for a long moment. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we can't just leave it hidden. We need to understand how it works, how to control it. Maybe there's a way to use it safely, to help people instead of hurting them." "But what if we make things worse?" Alex said, voicing the fear that had been growing in both of them. "What if we can't control it?" Maria didn't have an answer to that. All she knew was that they had a responsibility now, a responsibility to protect the crystal and make sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands. "We'll figure it out," she said, trying to sound confident. "We'll learn everything we can about the crystal, and then we'll decide what to do." They left the library with the book and the crystal, their minds racing with possibilities and dangers. The storm that had begun brewing earlier was now fully underway, and the wind howled through the streets as they made their way back to Maria's house. The storm hit Seabreeze with a fury no one had seen in years. The wind howled like a living thing, tearing through the town and sending waves crashing against the shore. The rain fell in sheets, drenching everything in its path, and the sky was filled with flashes of lightning and the rumble of thunder. Maria and Alex huddled in Maria's living room, staring out the window at the chaos outside. The crystal sat on the table between them, its soft glow a stark contrast to the violence of the storm. "Do you think the crystal caused this?" Alex asked, his voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. "I don't know," Maria replied, fear gnawing at her. "But if it did, we have to stop it. We have to figure out how to control it." They both turned to the book they had taken from the library, desperately searching for any clues on how to use the crystal. The legend spoke of rituals and incantations, of a deep connection to the natural world, but it was all vague and cryptic, offering little practical guidance. "We need more than this," Maria said, frustrated. "We need someone who understands this kind of magic, someone who can help us." But in a small town like Seabreeze, there were no wizards or sorcerers, no experts in ancient magic. They were on their own, and time was running out. The storm was growing stronger by the minute, and the power of the crystal was becoming more unstable. "What if we take it back to the island?" Alex suggested. "Maybe it will stop the storm." "But what if it doesn't?" Maria countered. "What if the storm follows us there? We could make it worse." The wind howled outside, shaking the windows and rattling the doors. Maria knew they had to make a decision, and fast. The crystal was too powerful to leave unchecked, but they had no idea how to control it. "Maybe we don't need to control it," Maria said suddenly. "Maybe we just need to release it." "What do you mean?" Alex asked, frowning. Maria's mind was racing. The island's people hid the crystal because it was too powerful. But maybe they didn't just hide it. They sealed its power away. And now, by taking it, we've unleashed it again. What if we need to put it back, to restore the balance? "But how?" Alex asked. "We can't just put it back in the cave. It's collapsed." "I don't know," Maria admitted. "But we have to try something. We can't just sit here and do nothing." They quickly gathered their things and prepared to head back to the island, despite the raging storm outside. The journey would be dangerous, but they had no other choice. The fate of their town, and possibly much more, rested on their shoulders. They raced to the harbor, braving the wind and rain. The Sea Sprite was still bobbing in the water, its sturdy little frame holding steady despite the storm. Maria and Alex jumped aboard, quickly untying the ropes and steering the boat back toward the island. The The sea was wild, with huge waves crashing against the boat and sending spray into the air. The wind tore at their clothes, and the rain was so heavy it was hard to see more than a few feet ahead. But Maria held the crystal tightly in her hand, its glow a beacon in the darkness. "We're almost there!" Alex shouted over the roar of the storm. Maria nodded, her heart pounding. The whispers had returned, swirling around them like a chorus of voices urging them onward. She could feel the power of the crystal growing stronger, and she knew they were close. Finally, the island loomed out of the darkness, its rocky cliffs rising like sentinels out of the sea. They steered the boat into the same cove where they had landed before and quickly jumped out, dragging the dinghy onto the beach. The island was even more eerie than before, the storm adding an extra layer of tension to the already mysterious place. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening, and the ground seemed to pulse with the same energy as the crystal. "We need to get back to the ruins!" Maria shouted, her voice barely audible over the wind. They ran up the narrow path, pushing through the undergrowth and dodging falling branches. The island seemed alive, reacting to their presence, and Maria could feel the crystal growing hotter in her hand. They reached the ruins, but the entrance to the tunnel was completely blocked by fallen rocks. There was no way back into the chamber where they had found the crystal, and Maria felt a surge of despair. "What now?" Alex asked, his voice filled with fear. Maria looked around, trying to think. The whispers were louder than ever, filling her mind with 1,000 voices, but she couldn't understand any of them. And then, suddenly, she did. The voices weren't just whispers. They were a language that Maria could now understand. The crystal was speaking to her, guiding her, showing her what needed to be done. "We have to take it to the cliff," Maria said, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. "We have to return it to the sea." "What? Why?" Alex asked, confused. "It's the only way to restore the balance," Maria said. "The crystal belongs to the sea. It's where its power comes from. We have to return it." Alex hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, let's do it." They ran to the edge of the cliff, the wind whipping at their faces. The sea raged below, the waves crashing against the rocks with a deafening roar. Maria stood at the edge, holding the crystal out over the abyss. "Are you sure about this?" Alex asked, his voice trembling. "Yes," Maria said, her voice filled with certainty. "It's the only way." And with that, she let go of the crystal. The crystal fell through the air, its glow fading as it descended into the darkness. The moment it hit the water, the storm began to subside. The wind died down, the waves calmed, and the whispers faded into silence. Maria and Alex stood on the cliff, watching as the sea returned to its normal, peaceful state. The sky cleared, revealing a starry night above them, and the island was once again shrouded in an eerie calm. "We did it," Alex said, his voice filled with awe. Maria nodded, her heart filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. The crystal was gone, returned to the sea where it belonged. The island's secret was safe once more, and Seabreeze was safe as well. But Maria knew that they had only just begun to understand the true power of the island, and the crystal's legacy would remain with them forever. Maria and Alex sailed back to Seabreeze in the early hours of the morning, the first light of dawn just beginning to break over the horizon. The sea was calm, and the town lay peacefully in the distance, unaware of the danger that had passed. As they docked the Sea Sprite, Maria felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had done the right thing, even if it had been difficult. The crystal was back where it belonged, and the island's magic would remain a mystery, hidden from the world. When they arrived back at Maria's house, they found Mrs. Sanchez waiting for them on the porch, her expression one of concern. "Where have you two been?" she asked, her voice filled with worry. "I was so worried." "We're okay, Grandma," Maria said, giving her a reassuring smile. "We just had an adventure." Mrs. Sanchez looked at them both, her eyes searching their faces. She seemed to understand that something important had happened, but she didn't press for details. "Well, I'm just glad you're safe," she said, hugging Maria tightly. "You're both brave, but please, no more late-night adventures." Maria and Alex laughed, and for the first time since they had found the map, they felt at peace. They knew that the secret of Whispering Island would remain just that, a secret, known only to them and the island itself. As they sat on the porch, watching the sunrise, Maria thought about the crystal and the power it held. She knew that it was a responsibility they had taken on, and one that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. But she also knew that they had made the right choice. The island was a place of magic and mystery, a place that needed to be respected and protected. And as long as they remembered that, the island's secret would remain safe. Years later, Maria and Alex would look back on that summer as the adventure that changed their lives. They never spoke of the crystal to anyone else, not even their families, but they both knew that it had left a lasting impact on them. Maria continued to explore the world, always drawn to the mysteries of nature and the unknown. She became a marine biologist, studying the seas and the creatures that lived within them, always searching for the magic she knew existed just beneath the surface. Alex, on the other hand, became an archaeologist, driven by a desire to uncover the secrets of the past. He traveled to ancient ruins around the world, always hoping to find another hidden treasure, like the crystal of Whispering Island. But no matter where they went or what they discovered, they always remembered the island, the whispers, and the crystal. It was a reminder of the power of nature, the importance of balance, and the responsibility that came with knowledge. And though they never returned to the island, they knew that it would always be there, waiting in the mists of the sea, whispering its secrets to those brave enough to listen.
Now that you've heard the story, let's go over some key vocabulary words and phrases that will help you understand it better. These terms come directly from the story, and learning them will help you improve your English skills. First, we have coastal town. A coastal town is a town located near the coast or shoreline, typically by the sea. In the story, Maria and Alex lived in a small coastal town called Seabreeze. Next is attic. An attic is a space or room just below the roof of a house, often used for storage. Maria finds the old map while helping her grandmother clean out the attic. Parchment refers to a type of paper made from animal skin, used in the past for writing. Maria discovers an old piece of parchment hidden in a small wooden chest. A cove is a small sheltered bay or inlet on the coast. In the story, Maria and Alex anchored the sea sprite in a small cove and rowed a dinghy to shore. The word overgrown describes something covered with plants that have grown in an uncontrolled way. For example, the ruins were overgrown with vines, and the stones were worn and weathered by time. Eerie is an adjective that means strange and frightening, often in a mysterious way. The island felt even more eerie during the storm, adding to the tension in the story. A ritual is a ceremony or action performed in a specific way, often as part of a tradition or religious practice. The legend in the story talks about rituals and incantations used to control the crystal's power. An incantation is a series of words said as a magic spell or charm. The story mentions incantations connected to the crystal's power. Legacy refers to something handed down from the past, such as knowledge, a tradition, or an inheritance. Maria knew that the crystal's legacy would remain with them forever. Weathered describes something that has been worn by exposure to the weather, often used to talk about materials like wood or stone. The stones of the ancient ruins were weathered by time. The word shrouded means covered or concealed by something, often in a way that makes it mysterious. The island became shrouded in fog and was forgotten by most people. A whisper is a soft, quiet voice or sound, often barely audible. In the story, Maria and Alex hear strange whispers carried on the wind as they approach the island. A pedestal is a base or support for a statue, vase, or other object, often used to display something important. In the story, the pedestal in the chamber holds the small, intricately carved box containing the crystal. To tremble means to shake slightly, often from fear, excitement, or weakness. In the story, the ground beneath Maria and Alex begins to tremble as the whispers grow louder. Finally, instinct refers to a natural or intuitive way of acting or thinking, often without conscious thought. Maria's instincts tell her that the island is trying to communicate with them. These words and phrases are key to understanding the story, and by learning them, you'll be able to improve your English vocabulary. Try using them in sentences of your own to reinforce what you've learned.